Hey everybody, and welcome to the special council meeting for Monday, January the 13th, 2025. My name is Mark Clark. I'm the mayor. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're going to just we'll go to roll call, and we'll go from there. Roll call, please.
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pletka.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Neal. Present. Councilmember Crabtree.
Here.
Councilmember Delaney.
Here.
Councilmember Fair.
Here. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk, any changes to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
All right, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the agenda.
No, you gotta do the little.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. We'll go ahead and vote.
I hate the second button.
All right, and that motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda, new business. Item number 5A, consideration of a contract for the Evans Junction Infrastructure General Contractor. We'll hear from staff.
Good evening, Ty Boreski, Public Works and Utilities Director. I want to thank Curtis Cunningham here for helping me out. He's been assisting us in engineering as we've had some staffing changes, and so he's been vital in helping to push this project forward. So he's up here to help if we have any additional questions. So today we're going to be talking about awarding the general contractor contract for the Evans Junction project. Scope of work for this project is getting the lots 1 and 2 to substantial completion. So that includes the construction of sanitary sewer mains, water mains, storm sewer, importing fill material for development readiness, and to allow gravity flowing for the sewer system, and installation of street infrastructure up to the concrete work. So I appreciate everyone being willing to meet here for this special meeting because time is very important. We have this May 10th, 2025 deadline to have substantial completion for our first commercial customer to move in and start their project work. So as part of this project, we had a request for bids advertised on December 6th with a mandatory pre-bid meeting on December 13th. Once again, we emphasized how important it was to make sure that we hit all of our deadlines here. The city has a lot on the line. We had a bid opening on January 3rd and received 7 bids, of which the low bid was Colorado Civil Infrastructure. We evaluate all of the bids looking at how they align with the scope and specifications that we put forward, their ability to meet project deadlines, and then we, of course, always check references and experience on similar projects. We went through this process with Colorado Civil. We received overwhelmingly positive feedback, and we're very comfortable moving forward, recommending them as the general contractor for this project. Looking at the finances for the project, we have a project budget of $3.461 million. Of that, we kind of have a few different funding sources with some modifications since maybe the last time we talked about this project. So we have approximately 1.35 out of a beautification budget, 1.8 out of 25 infrastructure improvement budget. And then we originally had $300,000 from the Wastewater Enterprise Fund earmarked for this project. That was based on when we were planning to do a lift station. So we had to revise that down from the 306 to roughly 150,000 because now we're going to be gravity draining the sewer. That leaves a shortfall amount of just over $131,000. And so we are proposing a solution in the interim to redirect that $131,000, a little more than that, from the 25 general fund reserves, $1 million originally set aside for the police station. And so all this kind of comes back with the reimbursement plan for the lot sale agreement. That lot 1, as we've discussed, is valued at $1.3 million, and that will be used to reimburse the city for project expenditures. So overall, we are recommending to award this contract to Colorado Civil with a base bid just over $3 million and a 10% project contingency to be used with city manager approval. That puts a total not to exceed at $3.437 million. And so Brian, myself, and Curtis are here for any questions.
Great, thank you. All right. So I will open it up for questions. If you want to use your little tab there to request for questions. I do have a couple questions. So I know we've received some information from one of the individuals that did bid on this project as well. And then they had some, wanted to get some background about what stood out with the Colorado Civil Infrastructure Incorporated that kind of brought them up to the top, and the procedures we go through for their procurement on that. So.
Sure, yeah. So we post our bids on BidNet for everyone to have the opportunity to read through. Our first way that we generally weed folks out is by having a mandatory pre-bid meeting. Basically, you have to attend that meeting to be eligible to submit a bid package. From there, we do an in-person bid reading. As long as everything is received on time with all the required materials, we will bid all of them in a kind of fair, open environment. And so we basically will go down the whole list and read them all out loud. I believe they're posted in the order we open them. So our first step is usually we look at the low bid and we start looking through to make sure that they hit all of the scope and specification requirements. Their project timeline is consistent with what we need. And then if we haven't worked with a contractor in the past, we will make phone calls to figure out have they worked on similar work. Has there been negative feedback? And how was the project experience in general? So we had Rick Picard, our interim city engineer, call some references, and he received positive feedback on their work, especially on large-scale transportation projects. So they clearly showed that they have the expertise, the material, and the manpower to hit our deadline, which is kind of our overarching goal here, to have it done on time and done correctly. So our commercial customer can get in there and start their own work.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, I understand that they're also going to be using our local asphalt plant to buy and purchase all of
That's
their
correct.
material. Okay, great, thank you. All right, Councilmember Delaney.
Hi, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I appreciate your time on this night, so that we can get this project going. I guess my only question I had, because I didn't see any what triggered it. What is an early and substantial completion incentive of up to $41,000? What would entail us to pay that out?
Brian, do you have the details on specifically what triggers that? I know when we set this project up, that was something that we wanted to put forward to give that incentive to make sure we're done well in advance. I'm not sure. I'll see if someone has the details on the specifics.
Good evening. Brian Stone, Economic Development Director. So as we were going through this and looking at the process, we were trying to ensure that we can meet that deadline of May 10th. So following direction and conversations that we had with our city manager, we do have a clause in there for a maximum up to 41,000. So it's a maximum of 7 days. Up or upwards to 41,000. So substantial completion means that McDonald's is ready to come in and be able to start work. Our hope is we've had coordination meetings with McDonald's back and forth with them. And so we will keep them on that timeline. So the sooner that they can get in, the sooner that we can complete and have some substantial completion, we can bring them back in and they can start their project earlier. So it's just an incentive we also have on the backside of that liquidated damages as well. So if that does not happen, that they don't get that incentive, then we will have liquidated damages that we have within our PSA of McDonald's that will then get funneled into McDonald's for their loss of time to start their construction.
Okay, so just to clarify, so if they finish by the 3rd, they get $41,000.
Yes.
Okay. You guys know me in purchasing. I just want to say this is a great move. I really appreciate you guys doing that. It will really give them an incentive to finish early. So I really like that policy.
And Councilman, if I may, real quick, I believe the early incentive is consistent with what we provided on 37th Street Phase 1 for the roundabout. We had that. It was a $4,100 a day for a maximum of 10 days for the roundabout, and we we mimic that as that incentive, because we do know that time is of the essence with this project.
Great work. Thanks, guys.
And I'm sorry, I did misspeak. It is 10 days, so it's
10 days.
$4,100 a day. It follows that. My
Oh.
apologies.
Thank you.
And we will be bringing a construction management contract to council in the next regularly scheduled meeting. So that's another layer of oversight and accountability and making sure the work is being done on time and to the quality that we've specified.
Excellent work. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Neal.
Yes, we're reducing, or we're eliminating the lift station, and we're reducing the cost to $150,000. Is that correct?
Yes, we anticipate that what we could reasonably pull out of the wastewater fund would be $150,000 because it has to be related to the wastewater infrastructure. Without the lift station, really, it comes down to the mains and some of the material that we're going to bring in to make sure we have that grade.
How does that create a shortfall if the money allocated is going to go back into the wastewater fund?
So we originally anticipated that this project would have 300,000, and then as we move forward with it and we realized we wouldn't need a lift station, the contribution of the wastewater enterprise fund is halved. So that's 150,000, leaving that small shortfall we have to address because it will technically roll back into the wastewater fund, but we can't use it for this project.
Okay, I'm totally confused because if you're pulling the funds out of the wastewater fund and they have to go back in the wastewater fund, how come the project is therefore short?
Let me try to rephrase this. So originally, the project anticipated that we were going to have $300,000 from the wastewater enterprise fund that was going to be allocated to this project. So the rest of the project budget was based on the assumption that 300,000 was going to be contributing from the wastewater side of things. When we scaled that back without having the lift station, there was roughly only $150,000 that we anticipate could reasonably be spent out of the wastewater fund. So we have that $150,000 that we can no longer use. It'll stay in the wastewater fund. We just can't use it for this project. So it's based on the project budget, not necessarily the net in and out of the money for the city. Because it's in the city, it's just in different pots.
Well, the way I read it, it sounds like we're going to use money, or we were going to use that part of that $306,000 for something else other than wastewater.
We were going to use that for the lift station, which was going to cost $150,000 more. We originally thought that was our only option on the site, given the elevation. Once we started doing some back of the envelope calculations and looking at the cost of materials regionally, we started seeing that it was economical to just bring in material and gravity flow it. And in the long term, that's a huge win for the wastewater system because we don't have a lift station to maintain.
I understand that part, but if you're not going to use that money, that total amount, then I don't see how come it affects the total project funding.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So as we had the lift station was 306 is what we anticipated, the estimated cost for that. As we removed that, it basically zeroed out. But then as we got estimates for this project, the infrastructure and the fill material, we could pull out of $150,000. So we had 300 put into that, and it was just a number for that. So if we were doing the lift station, we wouldn't have needed to bring in as much material, and that lift station would have cost 306. So the lift station alone, we have a savings with the wastewater utility fund, enterprise fund of just over $156,000. The overall project came in over our anticipated budget of what we had allocated within the beautification as well as the infrastructure project. So really what we're asking for is not for the lift station or that. We're just not utilizing that amount of money. We're utilizing the two pots that we have, and then we're asking for the general fund excess that we had earmarked for the police station to come in and help fill the void of what we're missing to complete this project.
So you need the additional funding because we're gonna do the gravity, and we're gonna have to do some fill.
It's just different pots of money that we're using, so we can't utilize the enterprise funds for that, even though in total budget, it looks like it's going to, because that fund is specific uses, we're gonna have to find another way to then complete this project.
I didn't realize that, we had the cost increased for doing the sanitary sewer because we were doing some backfill.
Overall project costs, yes.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions as I see on this panel, I will entertain a motion.
Actually, Mark, if I could, I have one more question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, could you speak to our financial policies on a local preference? And was the diligence done with Colorado Civil Infrastructure also done with Mountain Constructors? Colorado Civil Infrastructure was technically the lowest bidder, but on a $3.1 million project, a $5,000 difference is less than 1/5 of 1% difference. And then with the contingency and incentive funds, that's another $350,000. So in my mind, essentially those two contractors' price is effectively the same. So did we also do diligence on both contractors? And is there a reason other than that $5,000 less amount that we are being recommended to go with Colorado Civil Infrastructure?
Yeah, so there's a couple elements there. So we have an existing relationship with Mountain Constructors. We've worked with them on a number of emergency repairs. Generally, how engineering moves forward with a project like this is we get our bids, then we kind of work our way down with the low qualifying bid. Then we'll check references, look through scope, and if there's a red flag, if we have had negative interaction with them in the past, then we'll move down to the next one in the list and do similar diligence. Our research into Colorado Civil yielded no red flags, nothing that kind of pushed us down that list to start considering another option. As for local preference, our policies generally, when it comes to projects that are out for bid in terms of infrastructure, we focus on having a fair bid process. We do have some language related to local preference for supplies, but that's a very separate item from when we put a project out for bid, and it really is a level playing field. So that's kind of how we got to where we did. So we had no reason to go down that list and do additional diligence.
Okay.
All right, no other questions I see on there. I'd entertain a motion. All right, I have a motion and a second to award the Evans Junction General Construction Contract to Colorado Civil Infrastructure Incorporated in the amount of $3,087,811 with a 10% contingency of $308,781.10 and an early substantial completion incentive of up to $41,000, only to be used with city manager approval for a not to exceed amount of $3,437,592.10. And go ahead and vote. All right, and that motion passes 7-0. All right, great, thank you, appreciate it. All right, and with that being said, there's nothing else for the good of the order. Thank you, everybody, meeting adjourned.